So, how'd you manage to get one on your nose?
Good kitten internet. This is actually the second time I've recorded this part of the video because apparently I recorded the entire thing without audio. And this time the audio is working at least, so I've got that going for me, which is nice. Which means it's even later in the evening now. It's nearly 1 in the morning because I found out about it when I went to go edit the video. Um, Great. So, what I wanted to talk to you was about phones. So, I recently replaced my phone. This is my old phone. This is a Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra 5G. It's the last Galaxy Note that Samsung ever made. You can tell it has stylus, and it is a phablet. I don't particularly like this form factor, but it's apparently the one that has all the features that I want, which is to say it has wireless charging, which is a must for me, for reasons that I'll get to a bit later, and it works. Also, it has a really nice camera. This is normally in a case, that's why it's dusty along the edges. Apologies for the dust. So this is my old phone. I bought this in 2020, so first year of pandemic, and I was using it up until January of this year as my primary / only driver. I did bring it with me when I went on vacation to Vienna with friends, but I also kept it powered off the entire time, and it was basically just my backup. I generally like this phone. There's a couple of problems with it. For the biggest one by far is the in-screen fingerprint reader. It's about here. I don't think you're going to be able to see it. You can see smudges. Can't really see the fingerprint reader. In-screen fingerprint readers are garbage, and no phone manufacturer should be making them. Seriously, it works maybe a third of the time. Maybe. And if the screen is at all smudged, it works even less often. And that's an ultrasonic fingerprint reader too. And some lower end phones don't even have the ultrasonic version. They have an optical one, which is even worse somehow. I prefer using biometric authentication for unlocking my phone just for ease of use. I consider it the equivalent of like the interior door handle lock. It's not something that you use for safety and security so much as just enough to tell somebody maybe you shouldn't be messing with it. And whenever I go to locations that, let's say, I might have reason to believe that they're going to investigate my own devices for intruding on my privacy, cough, cough, the United States, I immediately remove the biometric authentication. Anyway, so the reason why I replaced this wasn't because of the stupid under-screen thumbprint, it's because the battery was starting to die. And more importantly, it's no longer supported security or software-wise. This phone was under support for, it was supposed to be 5 years. It ended up being a little over 5 years, actually, with the last update being September of 2025, I want to say. And from there, it's the Wild West on security. And as I'm going to mention a little bit later on in this video, I need to be very conscious of security on phones. So I knew I needed to replace my phone. I did a search. My initial search was fairly simple. I wanted a phone with at least 8 gig of RAM. This had 12. A phone with at least 128 gig of storage and a micro SD card slot, which is what this has, or at least 256 gig, or no, sorry, 512 gig of storage without a micro SD card slot. I wanted to make sure it had wireless charging because that is a requirement for me. And I think that was it for requirements. Yeah, that was it. And the reason why wireless charging is a requirement for me is that it's going to be really hard to see. You might be able to see it right now. There's a plug here. It'll be easier when I show you my new phone. This USB-C plug, it's literally just a cheap piece of plastic that's plugged into the phone. It's to remove it from getting more dust. The way I store my phone is in my pocket. My pocket accumulates a large amount of lint, and that lint ends up collecting inside of the phone's USB port, whether that is USB-C, USB micro, or even USB mini, although mini's a little easier to clean out. I do clean out the ports on my phones, but eventually the dust impacts so much that I can't clean it out anymore, and the plug itself stops being able to friction fit a cable, which means you can't plug it into charge. Whereas with wireless charging, all I have to do is set this phone onto a charger. I have a charger over here. Nope. Yeah, you can see it. It has work branding in the front, so I'm not going to show that. So I have a charger over here, and I can just set it on the charger, and it starts charging. That's it. Great. Admittedly, right now it doesn't reliably do that because the battery drain is such where if the phone is on, it doesn't necessarily charge because the charging rate wirelessly is less than the discharge rate of the phone just functioning. This phone's powered off at the moment, though. It's at 87% battery, apparently. See? Anyway. So those were my requirements. Oh, and also, I remember the last one. I wanted a phone with a fingerprint reader that wasn't in-screen. Non-in-screen fingerprint reader and wireless charging were actually the things that were the hardest to find together. Because for some reason, Apple, a lot of computer vendors have decided that higher level phones, one, are the only ones that have wireless charging. May I note that my original Nexus 7 tablet from 2013 had wireless charging. This was a budget device that was for sale for $200 to $250 US in 2013. My HP touchpad, which I bought in 2012, 2011, whenever the touchpads were for sale, had wireless charging. Admittedly, that was supposed to be a more premium product. I just bought it when it was on its fire sale. But it's been 15 years. Wireless charging is extremely simple to add. I don't understand why this is considered a premium feature. Anyway, also considered a premium feature is under-screen fingerprint readers. Premium devices usually have under-screen fingerprint readers. There's a category as an exception and a single phone as an exception. The single phone being more like phone line is the Xperia line from Sony. These are the phones that you get when you desperately want an older feature, like for instance, a side-mounted fingerprint reader, or a 3.5mm jack, or a micro SD card slot. I did not want to go for an Xperia phone because their support length was really low. If I remember right, they were only offering 3 years of support on a phone, and I replaced my phone less frequently than that. Again, I had this phone for over 5 years, or was actively using it for over 5 years. So, and that's what I'm going to consider my minimum, at least if I'm spending large amounts of money on a phone like I would for a flagship phone. But this was. Anyway, there's another class of phone that does meet those requirements, and that's a foldable phone of all things. It's because the fingerprint reader, the underscreen fingerprint reader doesn't work on a foldable phone. The foldable phone doesn't have enough space for it, I think. So they end up putting side-mounted fingerprint readers, which work so much better. I don't understand why. Anyway, so, okay. I start looking at foldable phones. They are, oh gods why level of expensive. And up until the most recent generations, they're also really heavy, clunky, prone to failure, was not worth it. The most recent generation of foldable phones, either flip style or book style, are significantly less prone to problems. So, okay. Started looking into them, looked at the price range, realized that Xperia phone would actually have only cost me maybe about €50 less than a foldable phone, which, okay, and ended up with this phone. This is the Honor Magic V5. You will not find this in the United States, by the way. I ended up scouring a couple of retailers for it and looking for a while. See, it is a foldable phone. This has a nice camera. That's actually what I've, outside of this vlog and the previous vlog, that's actually what I've been recording everything else with. So, like the kitties that you saw at the start of this vlog, that was recorded using my new phone. It has 16 gig of RAM, 512 gig of storage, no micro SD card slot, but it does have 2 SIM card slots, which I need because I have 3 different phone numbers on my phone, 2 of which use SIM or eSIM. I think all of them can use eSIM now. My current provider just recently swapped. But at the time, my current provider was physical SIM only, and given that I'm only spending 19 Danish kroner a month, which is about $3.50 a month, for my cell phone plan, I was willing to accept a lot of things from them. Anyway, so first let me tell you the tale of buying the phone. Unfortunately, I've said all of these right before this, so hopefully I'm not skipping too many things. I had settled in on this phone. It was basically between this, a Galaxy Z Fold 7, and I think I ruled out the third phone. Oh, right. I was thinking about as a backup plan a flip phone instead, like one of the Razr flips. So I had preferred this one because this actually has stylus input, which is something that I really liked in this phone. Admittedly, I definitely prefer having a little stylus garage for it. If you ever saw me with this in my hand in previous videos, it's because this actually allows you to control the camera remotely. So all I have to do is press the button. It's in? No, not me. Press the button. Yeah, you're not going to be able to see it very well, are you? There. Now you might be able to see it. Press this button, and it will start and stop any video recording. Or start and pause any video recording, which was even better. Or also just take photos. It worked really great. And then Samsung decided, we don't need a Bluetooth stylus anymore, and removed that feature for no reason. Anyway. Yeah, so the Z Flip 6 had stylus support. The Z Flip 7, they just removed it. Or Z Fold, not Flip. Z Fold 6 had it, Z Fold 7 did not. Z Fold 7 was significantly more durable, and yeah, was a mess. This phone has a stylus. I don't own the stylus because it is oh gods why expensive, but at least it has the ability. So my hope is sometime down the line I will finally get a eBay auction that tells me that it's cheap enough for me to buy. Right now it's €100 for reference, and I'm not going to spend €100. I could buy it locally and it would be even more expensive, so no. Anyway, this was the phone I decided on. It has wireless charging. In fact, it actually has reverse wireless charging in case if I want to charge a different device from my phone for some reason. Still don't quite understand the point of that feature. It actually has the wireless T2, which is the open standard version of MagSafe, which is an Apple trademark. Sorry, I have cat hair along my nose from Isin being cute. Anyway, hardware-wise, I really like this phone. I don't need performance features. To be honest, a mid-range phone performance-wise is perfectly fine with me. The thing that I use the most is RAM, because I hoard tabs like crazy. My tablet, which has, is it 6 gig of RAM, I believe it is? Or 4, one of the two? I actually run out of RAM on it, and it will just start force closing things in the background. It drives me up the wall. So I try to make sure that I have gobs of RAM on my devices, not necessarily because I need 16 gig of RAM today, but 5 years from now I will need 16 gig of RAM. Anyway, I mentioned it has a nice camera. It has side-mounted fingerprint reader. Of course. So the problem is that I'm holding the phone at the same time. See? Very quick to unlock, which is good. In fact, it's actually a little too quick to unlock. I accidentally unlock it when I pick it up out of my pocket. So yeah, it's also has the ability to, fold and unfold. See, it's me. But also, it has the ability... Oh, right, I have to... There. It also has the ability to do this, where I can have a preview of the video that I'm recording while I'm actually recording the video. Unfortunately, I have not been using this feature for this VEDA because I don't actually have any phone holders that can hold the phone while it's unfolded. I need to get a tablet mount for a tripod rather than the phone mounts that I currently have. And I just haven't bought one yet. I need to do that. Anyway, I think the video camera quality is reasonably good. There's a couple of foibles with it, which, oh boy, will I be ranting about shortly. But in general, it's a good phone. I like the hardware on it. It's also really fast. It is actually the second fastest networking device in this house, the fastest being that mini PC that I had showed off a couple of vlogs back, a couple of VEDA episodes back. It is the fastest wireless device by far, and also its USB connection is extremely fast. It's not just USB 2 speeds. I believe it's USB 3.1 Gen 1 or Gen 2. I don't remember which. I think it's Gen 2. I don't know. So let's talk about the downsides about the hardware. First and foremost, this is a dumbass design. Allow me to explain. So let me take the case off. There is actually a case on here. That's what this is. But you'll notice that the case doesn't cover the front at all. This is the official case. It comes with the phone. Most other cases are almost identical to this. So much cat hair. Isun is shedding quite a bit at the moment, which means every time he's being cute and cuddly, I end up with a face full of cat hair. It is a little obnoxious. So let me just take off this case. So this is the case that they give you. You see what I mean by it's so little, but it does actually do something because of their dumbass design. So this phone, you will notice that there is not so much cat hair. There's not really a lip on it to speak of. Like this middle edging is directly in the same height as the screen, which means that you cannot put your phone like this without scraping the screen. In addition, you will notice this obscenely large camera bump. Unlike many devices, the camera is the part that sticks out of the camera bump, meaning that I also can't lay my phone flat like this because it starts scraping the camera. Whose dumbass idea was this? And this isn't just Honor's fault for making it, because you will note, for my previous phone, the same problem on the front side, and the same problem on the camera bump. But worse, because this camera bump is not symmetrical. So without a case, if I were to lay my phone down, it rocks back and forth because the camera bump is not going across the phone. At least with my new phone, the camera bump is actually center in most of the screen. I have to use the case because you will see that there is this little gold ring around the case. This is actually where the phone ends up resting when I lay it like this. Why? Like, I do not understand phone manufacturers and their obsession over dumb little things like that of, this was intentional. This was not a design flaw. Again, my phone, which is nearly 6 years old at this point, my previous phone, has the same problem, only worse. Oh, and Samsung still does their off-center camera bump for some reason. Anyway, other physical problems. So I've mentioned that I keep accidentally, like when I hold my phone, I will accidentally unlock it. Which that's really minor. I'm not too concerned about that. There's always the problems with the foldable part of things. This one actually seems to be fairly reliable from what I've read online and from what I've experienced. It's fine. It's not quite as stiff as it used to be, but it's not supposed to be, and it's still very stiff to open and close. Just really neat to fold the screen like that. Anyway, yeah, I don't really have too many problems with the hardware on this phone. The software, on the other hand, is atrocious. And this is the second part of the video where I start ranting. Now, to be clear, I do not blame all of this on Honor. Oh, before I get to the software part, I need to relay you the tale of buying the phone. I completely forgot. So I had been hunting for the phone, as I previously mentioned, and I found it for sale at an online merchant here in Denmark. I put the order in for the phone, they confirmed the order, and then silence. Like, I knew they had said that they were going to have like a 2-week lead time on it, and that was fine. When 4 weeks roll around, on the other hand, I sent them an email going, hey, when do you think you're going to get the phone? Silence. A couple weeks after that, I sent in an email asking them to cancel the order because I needed the phone in time for my vacation that was in January. And if they had sent the phone that day, I would have gotten it in time. But otherwise, it was like within a week of me leaving, I want to say. And by this point, a local or a major online retailer, Pro Shop, which is kind of like the Danish or Scandinavian, because it's more than just Denmark, kind of like the Scandinavian equivalent of Newegg, except their headquarters is actually within walking distance of my apartment. They actually had it for sale as well. It was slightly more expensive. And I decided to just buy it there so I can actually get it in time. Sent them the cancellation request. Then, while I was on vacation, I received an email from the first retailer going, "Oh, right, we finally got it in stock. We're about to ready to ship it." And then sent back an email going, "I don't want it anymore." I sent, and they were being a bit pissy with me about it, going, "I had searched so long to find this. I've just bought it. Now I don't have anybody to sell it to." And I went, "Look, that sucks. Sorry that it sucks that way. I had specifically asked for a status update weeks ago and then canceled it at this point weeks ago. You had plenty of notice. You should have read your email." And then the next email was, "We have processed your cancellation." So anyway, software on this thing. So yeah, not all of this is Honor's fault. In fact, I pretty much lay the blame at about 50-50 between Honor and Google. Phones have crapware. This is something that Samsung was legendary for at the very start of the Android revolution. That's not the right term. At the very start of when Android was starting to spread, Samsung kept throwing crapware on their phone over and over and over again, preloading Facebook, preloading this, preloading that, having their own version of applications instead of using the stock Android applications, and all of that garbage. And what ended up happening in the Android ecosystem is that every manufacturer started doing this, including Google themselves, which makes absolutely no sense. But so every manufacturer have their own set of applications for certain things. Now, for some things, it makes sense, like the camera. The camera application usually has some custom features that are specific to the actual camera in the phone. So it doesn't entirely make sense, but at least there's a little bit of logic to having a unique camera app for your phone. Fine. But why is Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Netflix, Hulu? I am definitely missing lots of other major ones. Why do they all have apps pre-installed on my phone? On my previous phone, why was Microsoft Office pre-installed on here along with Shortcuts Office 365? And most importantly of all, why is there so dang much AI crap on this phone? Like, there is so much large language model based things that were installed on my phone by default that they were fighting over each other because both Honor and Google have their own. Not only were they fighting each other, they were crashing my phone by doing this. Again, this was fresh out of the box. And they reinstalled themselves. So I went in and disabled everything. Basically, anything that wasn't specific to hardware on my phone got removed, uninstalled, and or disabled. Anything that I couldn't disable, I tried to bury as much as possible. Got all of that situated and squared away. Then there was a major Android update. Everything reinstalled. Now, a lot of people point to the fact that Honor is not exactly one of the. I have a cat here in my mouth. Honor is not exactly known for being great with their software ecosystem. They're not one of the major OEMs or anything like that. But a lot of what was pre-installed was Gemini based. Google decided to shove AI crap in their Android update and re-enable itself. I am so damn tired of Android. Like, this is a major Android problem. Yes, Honor crapified my phone on top of it. But why? Because everyone else does it, including Google themselves. For every update, they re-enable various features that I want disabled. They change things around for no reason other than the fact that Google themselves, the way their tech model works inside of Google is that they only reward new. They do not reward maintenance, which means that every employee, every engineer at Google is incentivized to create brand new everything constantly. And more recently, they've been incentivized to use all of their AI garbage. So this phone had, was it 90 or 100 gig of preloaded crapware on it? I can't even remove all of it. It keeps reinstalling itself. Like, a great example, if I try to use a translate feature, which is one of the few things that I do actually end up using a large language model for, because that's the way modern translation works, Honor's random AI crap reinstalls itself, even though I have it disabled in the operating system. Now, being somebody who's very technical, the answer to me is, okay, well, I will install my own version of Android. There are plenty of custom ROMs out there, maybe not for my phone in particular, but that's not going to matter for reasons that will become obvious. But Android's an open source operating system. I should be able to make my own version of everything. Well, one, I think this has a locked bootloader. I'm not sure. It could be something that I could unlock, but it doesn't matter because two, I can't install a custom version of Android, even if one exists for my phone. That would be because of the Danish government. Let me explain. So there are some applications for Android that use something that try to detect the security features of your Android environment. That includes things like, is this a signed version of Android from Google or from your OEM? Is this an environment that I can gain root access to? Is this something that has been modified or tampered with? If any of those checks end up turning out to be yes, the application does not run. This is frequently used for financial transactions, such as banking applications. It's also used by the application Pokemon Go, because reasons that nobody's ever explained. Unfortunately, it is also used by the public transportation system here in Denmark. The public transit application, the one that I will just launch it really fast, and then this one right here. This application does a root check. If it finds that you have root access, it will refuse to run. If it finds that you have a version of Android that is unexpected, it will refuse to run. If you have even just a completely legitimate, authentic, from the OEM version of Android for certain Android phones, it just refuses to run because it fails that check. This is also how the Danish national ID system works. These two applications are required for me to function, unfortunately. The bus pass can theoretically be replaced with a physical tap badge. It is exactly what it sounds like. You tap it as you enter. However, Denmark and their public transit system is currently phasing out the existing tap badge system. They're going to be phasing in a new one, but they've intentionally sabotaged it where it's difficult to use because they don't want people to use it so they can track your every move. That public transportation app requires you to have location settings enabled for a bus pass. It's also one of the highest draining applications on my phone because it's constantly using location services for a bus pass. The tap badge has been sabotaged where it's difficult to use. They intentionally obfuscate how to get it. They still haven't released the ability to get it anonymously. You have to buy it online where they have all of your information, even though it's a bus pass. And if the tap badge happens to, say, for instance, not work correctly, and there is an inspector on board the bus, they could fine you even though you have your badge in your hand, tapped it, and the badge failed, or the reader failed. Fines here are very, very high for public transit problems. I do not wish to be fined. As a result, I need to use the public transit app. In addition, the national ID. Many European countries, both Denmark and Norway, have national ID applications. It's effectively a nationalized multi-factor authentication system. In the case of Norway, they actually have multiple systems. The primary one in use is actually created by the banks, kind of like how the United States has their social security number, which was never meant to be a national ID but turned into a national ID. Same type of thing. Here in Denmark, we have a national ID that's run by the government, or run by a company that the government outsourced it to. Anyway, it's an official government app. In order to be able to use it, once more, it does that root check thing. Now, it makes a little more sense for a national ID to do that. I mean, it is kind of an essential thing for your identification. If you have it, you are you. You can sign contracts with it. So having a phone that may have been rooted by malicious actors would be very bad to have with your national ID app at the same time. I do understand that. But there are two problems with this. One, I like being able to run my own things. I cannot do that. The only venues for this application are either the Android App Store or the Apple App Store. Same with the Bus Pass for reference. Problem number two. The alternative to using the digital identification is a code brick. These are things that have been in use for decades at this point. They are basically a number generation brick that you can use as a security token to be able to authenticate with things. If you've ever used multi-factor authentication, that's exactly what this is without the computer. The problem is that not everywhere works with it. For an example, if I were to make a purchase here in Denmark using my debit card, and it's online rather than in person, they submit a request to the ID application for authentication via the bank, and the application, if that one doesn't happen to support the code brick, will just fail, so I cannot buy things online or sign contracts or really do much of anything. Kind of need that to be able to function. Like, I had to sign my employment contract. I had to sign my housing contracts with it. I have to sign everything with this thing. It's a requirement for me to function. So my options were either keep this phone for only authentication purposes, which was an incredibly dumb idea because this is the one that's not supported by Android anymore, or buy a phone, modern version of Android, with all of its hell, and deal with it. Or option 3, buy an iPhone. And I hate iOS. Honestly, I probably would have been better off with an iPhone. Don't get me wrong, I really like the hardware of this, but Android has become such a piece of garbage. I can't do what I need to do. I might as well be using an iPhone with Apple's way of doing everything. They refuse to let any other way working, because that's basically what I'm forced with Android as it is. And I hate it. I don't think I should have bought this phone. I had regrets. I had intended to return it until I realized that I didn't really have any other good options. Like, the only other options I would have had would have been either an older version of this type of phone, which would have been more maintenance problems and, while cheaper, also not as long lasting, and I don't really like switching phones constantly. I'm actually ranting even longer than the previous video. Sorry, my throat's getting a little burny from talking too much. So I've basically been talking for an hour now. Yeah, or suffering with a phone that has major problems for my use case, which is needing a fingerprint reader that's not under screen and wanting wireless charging. Honestly, the fingerprint reader I can deal without. The wireless charging, not so much. Oh, and you can see that I have the same plug on this phone, because I don't trust myself. Hopefully the plugs won't get lost like they did with the previous time I tried this. So yeah, phones suck. I wish I didn't have to have one. I am required to have a phone for work as well, smartphone specifically. Have you had problems with your phones? Any of you out there, internet? I mean, I know that simpler phones like old flip phone style things or really simplistic smartphones tend to be, they work. If all you're trying to do is a phone call or very minor browsing, it's probably fine for most people. As I mentioned, I tend to be a RAM hog. I love my tabs. I love having lots of browsing windows, and I will have to switch between multiple applications frequently, and don't want them all unloaded from RAM constantly, which unfortunately puts me into the flagship phone category, even though processor-wise I'm perfectly fine with something mid-range or lower. I just feel like everything with smartphones have become enshittified, and I hate it. I loved my first smartphone. My first smartphone was a Galaxy Nexus. Oh, wait, no. No, it was a Galaxy S1, that's right. The original Galaxy S from T-Mobile. I hated the fact that there was preloaded applications on it from T-Mobile, and did everything that I could to try to remove them. Because I like operating systems my own way. That's why I don't run Windows anymore. Hell, I'm running Linux right now recording this video. I don't know what the future holds for me. Denmark did announce that they are trying to pull away from various American tech companies. But how can they? They're requiring everyone to buy a product from them. Just some food for thought. Hope this has at least been intellectually engaging for you, Internet, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.